Hi everybody, it's Kari at Champaign Jewelers, and I want to talk to you about GIA Lab Reports. What is a GIA Lab Report, you might ask? It is a report from the Gemological Institute of America that is the foremost grader of diamonds and gemstones. So GIA actually developed the scale that we use to grade diamonds, and there are other labs that grade them, but GIA is definitely considered the top tier of those. Today I wanted to talk to you about a GIA lab report and what is included on that lab report and what it all means, because this doesn't tell you necessarily the value of the diamond, but it gives you kind of the stats about it as far as the weight and the color and the clarity. So if you get a GIA lab report that looks like this is the full-size report. There are also minis that are available for smaller size diamonds, and they come in this nice plastic sleeve to keep it nice and safe. And you'll have what is a small sheet that's got the immediate stats on the stone, but then you've got that spelled out a little bit more in this full lab report. And it's a tri-fold style that folds out like this. So you can see on this lab report that it tells you the information about the diamonds, so that it's from GIA, that it's a natural diamond, and then what date GIA graded that diamond. So you can see lab reports from a million years ago. Like I've seen some that we've done updates on that are from the 1980s, and you'll see that they're a significantly different format than the modern styles are now. So they'll have this same kind of information, but the grading scale might have changed a little bit, or how this has been laid out is definitely going to be different than what this one looks like. So the next information after the date is that it has a GIA report number. Now, most diamonds that are over a carat in size have a GIA lab report number that is inscribed on the girdle of the diamond. And the girdle of the diamond is the outside edge of the stone. It's like this part out here. And it's tiny. You need a pretty strong magnification to be able to read that GIA number, but it's kind of like an extra little fingerprint for your diamond that identifies that stone. Now, you'll have the description of the shape of the diamond as well. So you have lab report number and then the shape. So for this particular one, for this lab report, it is a square style brilliant. So a square modified brilliant. Now you might say also, I have never heard of a square modified brilliant. What is that? It's princess cut. The princess cut is a trade term where the brilliant is the facets on the stone, that they're triangular facets, and a princess cut is square. So that makes it a square modified brilliant. And then it also has the measurements for the stone, and that's measured in millimeters, and that's going to be the length, the width, and the depth for the stone. And you think for millimeters are pretty tiny, right? But your eye can see 1/10 of a millimeter difference in a stone. So that's why we're trying to get those measurements as exact as possible, because your eye can even see 1/10 of a millimeter difference, which is pretty cool. Next up, they have the grading results. So that's going to be the carat weight. And again, they just put it on a scale, and that's how much it weighs. This particular stone was just over 1 carat. The color grade and the clarity grade. So there's a range for all of these color and clarity grades. And GIA uses a couple different tools to determine that. And then they also have GIA graduate gemologists and diamond graduates that double check that equipment to make sure that that grade is accurate. So there are multiple eyes and computers looking at that diamond to establish a color and clarity grade, which is pretty cool. They're trying to be as accurate as possible, but there's always still a little bit of a range involved. When you're going, you've got the color, carat, color, clarity. Those are all things that you've heard of, right? And then you've got kind of information about the cut. Now, if you have a diamond that is a round brilliant, this is going to look a little bit different than it does right here. But you're still going to have a grade for polish and symmetry. So polish is how well those facets are polished onto the stone. Diamond is the hardest substance in the world. So if you have a diamond that's very well polished, it's going to have almost like a smooth mirror finish to it. If you've got something that's not as well polished, it can have even polishing lines on it. So you think of like something that's scuffed on glass where it's got those lines on it, but just on a microscopic scale. That's going to affect how sparkly the diamond is. So this one has excellent polish, and it has very good symmetry. Symmetry is how symmetrical those facets are arranged on the stones. And generally speaking, we only see excellent symmetry grades on round brilliant diamonds and not as often in the fancy cut diamonds. So a princess cut would be considered a fancy cut. Anything that's not a round is considered a fancy cut. So very good symmetry is also very good in this case. The scale for polish and symmetry is excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. And with today's technology and how exact we can get the facets to be symmetrical and well polished, generally very good to excellent is what we're looking for most of the time, and especially in important diamonds. Fluorescence is a whole nother beast, which is super exciting. I like fluorescence. I think fluorescence is pretty cool. It is a structural effect in the stone that makes the diamond glow under different lights. So under a black light, it might glow blue. Sometimes it looks a little bit yellow, but usually blue is what you see. And depending on how strong that is, that fluorescence is, that's going to show different colors under the light. In daylight, if you have a stone that is a lower color, like say a J or a K color, that higher fluorescence grade can make it look whiter or brighter. But like a higher color diamond, like a D color, if it's got high fluorescence, we don't really want it to have high fluorescence because it can kind of make it look a little bit greasy. But it depends on the stone. So that's why fluorescence is a good factor to know about, but it definitely is not going to determine how beautiful the diamond is. This particular diamond doesn't have any fluorescence, so it is listed as none on the grading report. And then we've got little comments. So this tells us what the GIA Lab Report inscription is. That's on the outside girdle of the diamond again. And then any additional comments. So for this particular diamond, it's an SI1 clarity, and it says there are some additional clarity characteristics that were not put on the plot. What is the plot, you say? This is the plot. So the plot is going to tell us the proportions of the stone. So for this princess cut, it's going to have the size of the table and the depth of the stone. On a round brilliant, it might have some other different measurements. On a pear shape, it might have some different measurements as well. This percentage is a percentage of the total width of the stone. So it's saying that this table is 73% of the total width. Generally, a princess cut has a range that's considered an ideal cut. 70 to 75% is what we'd be looking at there. Whereas for a round diamond, we'd want this table measurement to be smaller, so it'd be closer to like 53 to 60% range. But it all depends on the proportions and the cut of the stone. So this is for the princess cut. And then this is the plotting of the stone. Now you can see all of these red marks in here are telling us what clarity characteristics are in that diamond. This is the fingerprint of a diamond. And a natural diamond goes through crazy experiences before it comes to the surface of the earth. It's going through volcanoes, it's high pressure, it's high temperature, it's crazy. There's going to be some clarity characteristics in most stones. This is a key that tells us what characteristics are in this particular diamond. And if you were to look at this diamond under a magnification, you'd be able to see these imperfections and be able to match up that this diamond matches this plotting, which is pretty cool, I think. So you've got some clouds, you've got some twinning wisps, you've got some needles, all different things. But because even though this looks like it's a lot, this is still an SI1 stone because you're not going to see any of those imperfections with the naked eye. Those are all imperfections that you'd see under a 10 power magnification, which is pretty cool. And then the last page over here has our color and clarity grading scale. So it tells you what color grade the scale looks like and what the clarity scale looks like. So you can see that this diamond is an H color. It falls into the near colorless range, and it's an SI1 clarity, which falls into the slightly included clarity range. And that is the anatomy of a GIA lab report. All lab reports are different because all diamonds are different. All natural diamonds are different, and that's what really makes them unique and special. Thanks for learning with me.